Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this regular Board of Finance meeting for Tuesday, January 18th, 2022 to order. First item on our agenda, I should say Happy New Year, January, so our first meeting of the year. So Happy New Year. First item is public forum. Anybody wishing to address the board in public forum? Okay, seeing none. Moving on to item number 2, approved minutes of our regular meeting. Minutes of December 20th, 2021. Do I hear a motion to approve? You're both on mute, but I think it's Bob motion, Bob motion, and Veronica seconded. I got it. I got you. I looked up just as you were raising your hands. Okay, great. So regarding the minutes, I don't believe I have anything for either corrections or revisions. Does anybody have anything?
I think I did. If you can hang on a minute. You can go on to somebody else. I just have to find it.
I actually do have one. It's fairly small. On page 5, third paragraph, right in the middle, where the line says, challenge regarding staffing, quarantining, processing, quarantining, and I believe I said hybrid learning. That is it. Anybody else? Veronica, did you find it?
I'm looking.
Okay. Anybody else have any? I'll be darned. I have one more. Sorry. Page 7. The motion up at the top should be future debt payments. DEBT.
I found it, Mike.
Go ahead.
Page 8, first paragraph, sentence that starts, how this differs from score. It makes, I don't know, it seems funny. I highlighted it because I wasn't sure. It differs from score, that it makes the businesses in focus on the right time, right thing. Minor, just minor.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Megan and Jeff, Mr. Beatty and Ms. Scanlon. Thank you. Okay. Item number 3, correspondence. Usually we do standing building committee first because we just got the minutes. David, we got you on the agenda after pension and OPEB, but this usually is very quick. Item number 1, pension committee. Anything on pension committee minutes or the monthly report? I did notice on the pension report last month, I had indicated we had a good month and I spoke too soon.
Yeah.
Showing how it cycles. So I'm not saying it. So I'm not saying anything this month. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. But
I think that happened. I mean, that I think is a trend all over, right? Bob,
Oh, yeah.
Bob would know better than me.
Absolutely.
And I'd just like to add, we also look at it as a day in the life, it one day before, one day after,
Right.
could change. So it's a moving target, but we have to pick some point to look at it.
Yep.
Yeah, well, it's a pension portfolio. It's built for safety, not for speed.
Right.
I just know that happened in other trends, and that happened to us too. So I don't think
as far as we know, it's still one of the best, if not the best, of its kind in Connecticut. So we're sitting pretty well.
We're funded well.
Mr. Chairman, I completely agree with the comments, including Bob Hartman's about how well managed it is. One of the things that you will be surprised to see when it comes time for you to review the pension figures, you may have already seen it on the Board of Ed side, but on the town side, you will see a reduction in pension contributions. I know it's there for the Board of Ed side because that's based on evaluations at the end of the fiscal year. So you should be happy to see that there will be a decrease in the required contribution on pension for the next budget. And that includes dropping the rate to 5.75 from the current level of 6% on the assumed rate.
Great, thank you. And every little bit will help when it comes to offsetting the insurance.
You got it.
Okay, anything else on pension? And we go to item number 2, the OPEB board minutes. Anything on those minutes or that report? And everybody did receive, maybe I'm kind of, I think Mr. Trotta last month requested the 5-year budget for OPEB, and everyone hopefully received that on the board. I know it was sent. Mary Jane, you sent it, I think, during the meeting. So we have that information. Just want to make sure it was on record that we do have it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's also part of the budget package because that's a
Right.
that's a budgeted item. So you'll see
Right.
it again.
Right. I just remember it came up at that point, or maybe it came up as something else, but this is the time to bring it up. So thank you. Correspondence under number 3, Standing Building Committee. We did just receive those minutes today. Thank you, Tracy. I'm glad we did get them very promptly, I might add. I did have a chance to look at them and scan them. I can't speak for the rest of the board, but I really didn't have anything that I had questions with, at least on first glance. Does anybody else from the board have any questions for Mr. DeMaio?
One question.
Go ahead, Mr. B.
The Lakes HVAC, how's that progressing? It looks it's great that they pushed through during the winter break to get that accomplished, but I was just wondering where things stood as far as a timeline.
Yeah, so that's item 6 on the board minutes.
Yep.
And
Yes, exactly. Sorry about that.
no, it's okay. No, so we did get the boiler up and running, or the contractors got the boiler up and running during the Christmas break. So now we've got the Johnson Controls figuring out the few items on the control side. So it's really the boiler's up and running. Everything's in good shape. So they're really set for the balance of the winter and in good shape. So weren't any issues.
That's great.
Yeah.
Just on a quick glance, it looks like a lot of projects are actually, or quite a few, are really kind of in a finishing stages.
Yeah, we need to build something.
Good news for you. You need to bump some to get room for the other ones.
Our meetings are a little dull at the moment. So oh, you're looking for something to do? Yeah, we are. Yeah, all right. We're gonna get together once a month. We need something to do. Let's go. So everything's going well. Things are winding down, but we do have a couple of projects that we're we got the we'll be going out to bid, at least for the design side, for summer projects.
Great. Does anybody else have anything for Standing Building Committee?
No, thank you.
I think for this month, it was pretty straightforward. So
I realize you just got them today. We have a meeting 1 week later this month. And then Terry is a little under the weather getting the minutes out. So if somebody has anything after you get a chance to really study them, please don't hesitate to send me an email. I'll be happy to respond.
great. Excellent. Well, the fact that we had something to review is great. So thank you.
Very welcome.
Thank you. Thank Terry for us. Thanks a lot, David.
All right, folks. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, number 4, review and accept the report of expenditures for the Board of Education for December 2021. We have Linda and we have Kristen Peck, who is the reviewer for December. Kristen, I will hand the floor over to you.
Great, thank you. Hey, everybody. Okay, so our expenditures for the month of December were $6,609,325. which is right in keeping with where we were at last year. Last year we were at 47.19%. This year we're at 47.67%. We didn't have much revenue for the month of December. Salaries, we actually had an extra pay cycle just because of the way that Fridays fell in the month of December. We had a third Friday. So you'll notice that we had 3 payrolls in the month of December. Purchased services, you'll see as you look at the purchase services items, we are actually a little high there in the professional and tech services line because of a video that we are making to incentivize folks to come to the district and actually work within our district. And that is something we are expecting to receive a grant from, so we should get reimbursed for all of those monies. Tuition, we're doing pretty well so far. As we all know, that can change somewhat abruptly, but right now we are below where we were last year, which is great news. Let's hope that continues. Supplies and materials is not that bad. We're about 100,000 higher than we would have liked to have been in unbudgeted items, which are all COVID related. So we've got masks and extra cleaning supplies, the tent heaters to try to get these kids to have some outdoor spaces that they can still go in the winter. So really not horrible, not an astronomical number there, but again, those were kind of unexpected expenses as we were hoping to be a little bit farther beyond all of these accommodations that we need to make for COVID. Let's see, transportation is a tiny bit higher than last year, which again is not surprising. I'm sure as most of you know, we were not in school on Wednesdays last year, so we were saving a little bit of fuel money there. This year we're back to 5 days, so our costs are a little bit higher, but really only about 2% higher. Our fuel rates are locked in, as you know. So I don't think that's a horrible number at all. And the warrant for all of the payments for the month was $2,617,901.95. And that's about the summary. What questions can Linda and I answer for you? And by that, I really mean Linda.
Well framed. On purchase services, I had a couple of things highlighted here. One of them was dues and fees was over, but it was over last year as well. And I don't know if that's just something that's a timing issue. It's not over by much and it's not a huge amount, but just was curious on the dues and fees.
There are some fees in there that we paid for the IB diploma testing, and we will get those funds back at the end of the year when the students pay the fees, but we have to pay them up front.
Okay.
Custodial looks like it's down quite a bit from where it was the last 2 years. Is that just timing, or is that, and that's even with some funds encumbered. So I was just wondering.
So they're changing over some of the chemicals, cleaning stuff that they use. So we're trying to phase out what we have, and then we'll be doing a luggage purchase of the newer chemicals that we're going to be using to clean the buildings with. So we have kind of cut back a little bit in trying to use up the supply that we have.
Is the new stuff more expensive?
I certainly hope not. I haven't really seen a full breakdown yet.
Okay.
Anybody else on the reports, warrants? Oh, I think I had something on warrants. Not to jump ahead too quickly, but gotta find it. There was an expense on page 3 near the bottom, Connecticut Center for School Change. And it talks about superintendent network, SIP network, 42,005. Wondering what that particular expense is related to.
So this is a network of superintendents that Dr. Freeman was invited to join, that focuses on
Learning, right, Linda?
Yeah, learning recovery from the pandemic, and kind of collaborating together on ideas on what can be done to help the students. And there's a bunch of other things involved in this network, but that's the basic description that Dr. Freeman gave to the board last week.
And he also mentioned we were going to use some ESSER money for that as well, right, Linda?
Yes. That's part of, it's paid through the ESSER grant, because there's a requirement for the ESSER grant to focus on the learning recovery. And that's one of the ways we're focusing on it, is this network of superintendents and initiatives that they're bringing forward.
It's
So
a pretty well known nonprofit, Mike, in the state.
Okay. Oh, okay.
That brings together educators from all across the state to improve learning. I think their mission is like improve learning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's a pretty well known.
But I'm also hearing that there's seemingly some reimbursement for that from the ESSER. Okay.
Yeah, I believe you'll see it on the, well, it may not be too clearly labeled in the ESSER grant report, but it's included in that expenditure summary.
Excellent. Okay.
I had a quick question.
Veronica?
On the warrants, page 3, the Branford Board of Education, that's just a pass-through grant, right? We get that back?
Not all of it. We only get a tiny portion of it, about $9,000-10,000, and the rest of it is all in our budget. And that's because we're supposed to run a program, we're required to, and if by joining the consortium, we pay the money to Branford and join their consortium. And the state only gives us a small portion of the fee back. And then we pass that portion on to Branford. This is the full fee, and then I expect to get the rest of the money back from the state.
A lot of money.
Yes, it is.
Who's in the consortium? Do you know?
Branford, North Branford,
The city
us.
district, maybe?
I think Durham was, but they left. I don't think they came back. I'm not sure who else.
Is Clinton? Isn't
Yeah, Clinton used to
might
be. I
be.
don't know if they still are.
Clinton? I know used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Clinton still is. I think Durham's the one that left.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I had one other one other note on warrants on page 9. NEASC. I do know what NEASC is, but there was an item called GHS decennial fee 2021. I don't know if I know what decennial fee is or why, so that's why I'm asking.
I looked it up, and other than it's a 10-year fee, I really didn't get much of an answer. It's the same amount of the fee that we pay otherwise, but then every 10 years we have to pay this decennial fee.
Okay.
The invoice did not have a whole lot of description on it other than decennial fee.
I mean, I'm not, and I'm not denying the fact that, fees or expenses to NEASC aren't needed or required, right, being members, but the decennial fee, okay. They must allocate that separately from their decennial fee. Okay.
Probably.
It takes the town's 10 years to forget the last invoice that they got, and then they send it again.
Hmm.
I've been here over 10 years and I don't remember it, so
See?
there you go.
So just wait a minute. So just to confirm, so it's saying it's every 10 years, but we pay a fee like that every year? Did I understand that correctly?
No, it's not every year.
No, so it literally is every 10 years we pay, it's not a huge amount, it's 4,000, $4,200, but
But
now
it's the
that I
same.
know what it is, curious how often we pay them beyond that.
I'll look back in and to see. I know it's the same as the fee when you're going through the accreditation,
Right.
which I thought was every 5 years.
Okay.
So every other accreditation, you're paying double. I'll double check
Okay.
on it. Hopefully somebody at the high school can give me a better answer.
That'd be lovely. Thank you.
I will let you know.
I had a quick one, hopefully. Just a little further down that page, NFI Vermont. It says pupil service training. Is that training of the pupils or is training of staff or someone to serve the pupils?
It is training for the pupil services staff. I believe it's on trauma-informed instruction. So how to help students who have been through some kind of trauma. So it was training for the special education staff.
Great, thanks.
Anything else on financials, warrant?
Well, I just cheated. Maybe I can save Linda a little legwork here. I just looked up the NEACA, the ongoing accreditation. Accredited elementary, middle, or high school must host a visiting team every 10 years. So this must be to pay to have them come in and have pizza and however they host them. So you get accredited. They literally come and visit and assess you.
Yeah, I do know it's a requirement.
New England Association of Schools and Colleges. So it's not like you've got to fill out a form. They send a team in. It's pretty interesting.
Not to divert too far off, but years ago when the high school was still the old high school, NEASC was the entity that said that the high school was in dire need of improvements because the facility was just not able to really hold the programs and have a good learning environment. And so NEASC is very common to hear about when facility planning is in need, especially master planning, and then they rate the schools and how they're doing both in a lot of different aspects, but I know in the facilities themselves, being able to be part of the accreditation. It's one of the criteria, but it is a requirement. So thank you, Bob, for looking that up.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate it. There were some minutes, anything on the minutes from December 13th, operations, we kind of know all that from last month. The joint meeting, very comprehensive, not really our role to make any edits or comments to it, but those meeting minutes were very comprehensive in what we talked about. So captured everything pretty well. I didn't see anything outstanding on that was missed. Anything else for Linda or Kristen?
I did send out to everybody earlier the relief funds grant report and the tuition report. Just note that the tuition is running about the same as it was last month, but we do have some students that we are possibly going to be outplacing this month, so this could be changing. But right now at $345,000 under budget, we're still in good shape. And then,
Thank you for the reminder on these. I'm so used to looking at the tablet that I forgot there's hard copies that I printed out. So,
yeah,
thank you.
sorry.
Linda, these are,
Good.
these new changes are just to, I don't want to get too much into details, but these are students that were already in district, or these are students that have moved into the district?
I'm not sure of the specifics. I believe they were already in district.
Right. I mean, that's part of the variable. I mean, on one level, you think about students moving into district who need special education or additional, treatment. But often there's a change of the students that are within the district from year to year. So I think that it bears repeating that it's not this static number for that changes when people move to town or move out of town or age out of the system. It can change for one student throughout the course of their career in the
And
Guilford
their
Public
needs
Schools.
change, especially as they get older.
Yes.
It's a very good point, and not to go into any detail, the budgeted, right now the actual student count is 5 less than the budgeted amount in quantity of students, but the projected cost is, I'm not going to do percentages in my head, but it's $400,000 more. So 5 less students for $400,000 more makes, that's why it's just, you cannot judge this at all. But the fact that it's trending lower, and we're saying trending lower, it's under now, is a good sign.
There was also a fairly substantial increase in the per pupil rate, which is the base that we have to pay up to before the excess cost grant kicks in. So we had based the budget on a lower number, and then for each of those 26 students, we are now paying a higher number before we get excess cost reimbursement, which is another piece that we don't know going into building the budget. We don't know what that number is going to be for the next year.
Right. Did you want to, on the relief fund grants that you shared with us, again, thank you for that. I know that was requested by members of our board. Is there anything that you wanted to point out? Because there's six different categories, 6 different grants.
Yeah, so the first 3 are pretty much done. We just have a little bit of money left on the ESSER 1 grant. The second page are the more active grants. The ESSER 3 ARP grant, I actually changed this from the last report. I broke out the budget categories a little bit better. It's going to help me track it better, so you can see what salaries what groupings for salaries we're paying for. And then the IDA 611 and the ESSER 2 bonus grant, those just were officially approved at the end of December, so we really haven't started expending those yet, but we will be.
Linda, I have a question on these grants. You wrote on their application approved by the state on different dates, September 30th, December 29th. Is that similar to like what the town has to do for like a FEMA grant? They have to go through, will they come back and go through your records and audit this? They're just approving the application?
Yes. So each one of these had a different application deadline. So we have to submit the application. They go through, review the goals and our plan for spending the money, and they can come back and make us do revisions if necessary. And then they will finally approve it at some point.
As we move our way through this,
That's funny.
there's a theme that kind of comes through this, that we were hoping to be nearing the end of this joyride through pandemic, but it just keeps dragging on. And I was just wondering, are there any additional grant opportunities on the horizon that you're hearing of or expecting?
Not that I have heard. The only thing that I've heard recently is that there's talk of expanding the deadline for use of the ESSER 3 ARP grant. So that we won't have just the 2 years, they may extend it out further, but I haven't heard of any other new grants at all.
Okay.
I think you have to wait until the session now because the legislature has say in the rest of the rescue plan money.
The fact that this has been itemized like this is very helpful. So thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, anything else on our iPads or by paper? Ask Linda or Kristen. Otherwise, I will go ahead and entertain a motion to accept the report of expenditures for the Board of Education for December 2021 in the amount of $6,609,325.28.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions, recusals? Excellent. Ms. Trudeau, Ms. Peck, thank you very, very much for the report
Thank
tonight.
you.
Nice to see everybody.
Nice
Nice to see you as well.
Wish we were in person.
Soon enough.
Next time. Next time.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Item number 5, review and approve the report of expenditures for town government for December 2021. Mary Jane?
Hello. Happy New Year, everyone.
Same to
New
you.
Year, Mary Jane.
We'll start with revenues. Gonna have a nice, short, sweet report tonight because revenues are right at 64% where we were last year. At this time, everything seems to be trending pretty well as long as we don't look at interest income for the finance department. And other than that, I really don't have anything specific to bring to your attention. Unless you have any questions.
The interest income in finance is at least better than it was last year. Of course, maybe not dollar amount, but percentage looks better.
I know I told the Board of Selectmen earlier today that I stumbled upon the budget for Manchester, and their interest income budget went down 85% from 2019 to 2022. So we're all in the same boat. And theirs was up over like $1.9 million to start. So,
Wow.
yeah. So unfortunately, we're all seeing the same effect. And, you know, even though they might raise the interest rates, it will take some time for us to get back to where we were.
4 to 6 rises this year anticipated.
Oh, Matt, you made it. Yay.
I did.
So yeah. So yeah, that's the cash balance. That's good stuff. We'll be asking about what bonding is coming up, what we can do refinancing later.
Mm-hmm. Any other specific questions on revenue?
No, not for me. Anybody else?
But thanks.
Tax collection seems to be on target. I know when the pandemic hit, that was a big concern, but fortunately we seem to be not as severely impacted as we might have expected.
No, and you know, I always say Guilford's taxpayers are phenomenal, even during the pandemic, even though the money came in a little slower because they had the ability to do that. We still, you know, made our targets. So kudos to Guilford and their taxpayers. Anything else before expenses?
Say we go to expenses.
Okay. Similar story on expenses. I really don't have anything more to detail for you other than things that we've talked about in prior meetings. We're at 54% expended compared to 53.6 last year at this time. So I'm really just open for questions.
Look through them. I wish I had one. It's just one of those things where we're mid-year. So, you know, if everything's trending well, you know, the percentages, the numbers don't really, you know, shock you. It's pretty much where we would expect to be.
Right. And I did discuss last month about the capital account that was overdrawn because we have a lot of other funding coming in. And until those purchase orders are finalized, you know, we won't be moving any money. So it's, you know, it's over by $15,000, but it's just a book, you know, it's just a book number. It's not true.
Right. Anything else on expenses? Anybody?
Sorry, yes, it's just a little timing thing on police and fire. Is that, again, like 3 Fridays in the month? Is that a little thing?
Yeah, fire usually lags behind. Police, the revenue is really based on, special duty. So last year, if you remember, we had the new lines going through, the center of town, and, Eversource and Connecticut Water were out daily. And if you drive through town now, you're not seeing that as much. So that brings the police revenue down a little bit. It's really based on activity for that special duty.
I have, speaking of special duty, the COVID test distributions that the town did, are we paying the police officers and fire department personnel from one of the COVID grants that we got?
There's a FEMA COVID vaccination grant that we are in the middle of applying for, working with FEMA on that. So we'll be getting our costs back from that. We have not received that money yet. FEMA's always behind, but that all of those costs are being requested for reimbursement.
I'd like to point out that Mr. Hoy did not put in for overtime, standing out there in the cold.
Yeah, right alongside you, Bob, on that.
Handing
Sunday.
out those
It was
masks.
cold, and I thanks, Bob. And this highlights a great point. Thanks to the Rotary for and you individually for doing that. Also, Veronica and her husband Dick were out passing out tests at the fairgrounds as well. So great public service.
It was an honor, and it went very well.
It did go well. I think that's one of the things that we can hang our hat on. And I'm surrounded by very talented people, particularly in the emergency management team, who we literally stood up an application for the online registration for the test kits in less than 2 days. And I think compared to how a lot of other communities did it, we did it the right way. So thank you for bringing that up, Bob.
Since we're on that subject, any further word on more tests coming our way? Or is that ship maybe sailed a little bit because of the need or the
government announced today that they're going to do this in a little different fashion. They're going to use a mail order system. You are going to be able to, I think there was a premature soft launch today, which everybody in the country found out about. But
I ordered mine. I got mine.
Each residence is going to be able to order 4 test kits this time around, and that it had been rumored that this is the way the Biden administration was going to go from Jump Street. Unfortunately, the governor, fortunately, the governor was getting ahead of the federal program, and despite the fits and starts, we were able to get some test kits out. But I suspect that because this is a gubernatorial election year, the administration will continue to try to supplement whatever the feds are doing. So it wouldn't surprise me if we weren't to get another allocation directly from the state. In fact, I think the state today announced, the Department of Emergency Management announced that masks, gloves, and test kits, there's a limited supply. Please apply for whatever you want, and they'll see how many they got left to go around. So
I think they had 80,000. I only know this because we applied for 15,000 today. So.
Yeah, and I think the prioritization scheme was for the individual residents was at the bottom of that prioritization scheme, which is appropriate.
Okay. Anything else? Should we move over to warrants? Anything on the warrants? I don't believe I saw anything that caught my eye. We have new updated capital reports. Mary Jane, thank you. Anything you want to share on regarding those?
Other than, I was asked a question at the selectmen's meeting, so I'll report that, I'm still looking to close out some of the items. I'm working with Cliff Gurnham right now on one of the school projects that we're going to be looking to close out, and I have a couple on the town side. So you'll be seeing at least probably 3 to 4 projects come off the list this time around. Probably do it around the same time we, do debt. It's just easier to deal with it all at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to believe we still have some from 1213 and
oh, I've been working hard to get rid of them. And it looks like we lost Matt again, but ask Matt. I'm just on these things all the time.
And I'm really happy about that, Mary Jane. It's been an issue that I brought up years ago. I'm really glad that we're closing some of these out. It's good for Guilford.
Yeah, it's I slow but sure, but we got did 4 or 5 already for the Board of Ed, and like I said, I have another 3 or 4 to do. With doing the best we can. Matt's back again. But.
Well, I'm back visually. I was there audibly the entire time, but
Okay.
I asked Mary Jane the same question at the Board of Selectmen meeting this afternoon, and quite honestly, Mary Jane has done more to clean up that those bonding projects than her predecessor did in the number of years that she was there prior to Mary Jane. So, and one of the things too is you need to remember that we have over the years written the language loosely enough that we might be able to use it for like projects. So rather than going back out for additional bond authorizations, or particularly as it relates to small projects, and for those of you who have dared to read through the legalese on those bonding questions, the therefores, whereases, et cetera, we have given ourselves a lot of latitude in terms of how we can spend some of those funds. Now, one could argue that we shouldn't do that, but I think over time we found out that it made more sense to do that. But Mary Jane is continued to focus on cleaning those up.
Yes, and my comment regarding it's hard to believe that there's still older capital bonding out there was not a reflection or a comment to you, Mary Jane. I hope you know. I know it's almost like an act of God to take some of these off. So I do appreciate what you're trying to do with these. So, anything else on capital projects? On medical. So I think now, and I'm alluding, I guess, to what I will mention during old business, which will be about our meeting with the Board of Education prior to our regular meeting. We learned a lot about, if we didn't already know about these medical monthly expenditures. So I think we probably look at this maybe a little bit differently in the future about how this is all created and how the numbers are formed. I did notice that a couple things. One, December, we had a heavier month. One of our heavier months over the last several, I would say probably 18 months.
And that's not going to help our experience moving forward.
No, and we heard that from Joe Spurgeon that November was a good month and it helps bring the numbers down, and he was hoping for a low number in December, and whack, we had a lot of claims in December. Probably not too, not incredibly surprising, I guess. December as we go into, go into the holidays, I think, and I guess in some ways I'm a little bit surprised because we had the variant that's was really kind of pumping up in December, starting to happen, and this kind of shows that there was more elective, maybe even preventive claims that may be coming in. I'm just speculating, but it does seem like it was a much heavier month than November. So,
yeah,
or it was, and what the reason was.
We're also never quite clear. never quite clear at what point the HSA it kicks in, because you know, the employees have to use their deductible before the full amount of their claims are paid by the insurance fund. So, you know, we're about we're halfway through the year that could be happening. You know what I mean? So the claims start to get higher because the employees paying less and the town is not, you know, paying more. So that plays a factor in the second half of the year as well. And the only thing I'd like to add, I appreciate all of the Board of Finance members that sat through that discussion with Joe Spurgeon. So when we come to you and Linda and I, you know, say that we are looking at these numbers all the time and we're reviewing these numbers before we come to decisions on what to bring forward for the budget, you only saw part of what we look at. So, hopefully, I'm hoping that, you know, you have a clearer understanding of the research and the background and the digging through the numbers that we do before we come forward with the numbers every year, and that we don't just cherry pick numbers moving forward. So I'm glad that you sat through that, and we're going to have him come and speak to the Board of Selectmen as well to give that same presentation, since what he spoke about today at the meeting, I'm sorry, I know you're going to talk later, but you know, what he talked about at the meeting was for the Board of Education's benefit, but the same exact effect is happening on the town side. So, you know, it's important that all of the boards know what's happening with the medical fund this year.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, and this is a question directed to Mary Jane, having now sat through almost as many meetings as you have with Joe Spurgeon and starting to understand the process and how we do it better. This whole thing about the HSA and we're finally working our way through the deductible, et cetera. How do you account for the $2,000 contribution to each beneficiary? Is that straight lined over the 12 months, or do we recognize that payment upfront?
You mean, how do we pay it to the employee?
Yep.
Twice a year. We pay twice a year. I don't know about the Board of Education.
Okay. So, you know, that would be what, $1,000 each, right? On each of the two. When do we recognize? When do we recognize those payments? Is it at July 1 and then January 1?
Correct. The first pay period of July and the first pay period of January. Okay. But it's not reflected in the medical account. Those expenses come straight through our budgets.
That's what I'm looking for. How come that does not come through the medical account? Is that employee benefits versus employee medical?
It's just how we did it when it got started. Okay. Just a decision we made. It certainly could be done differently. Absolutely, that could come out of the medical account as well.
Okay.
The little light I might shine on that is that when it shows up on your W-2, it kind of it appears as an employee benefit. How the provider accounts for it might be something different.
Yeah, but medical benefits is an employee benefit as well. So I guess I could argue both sides is what I'm trying to say.
You can do without trouble, but it's not as clear. It's not as clear cut as one might think.
Thanks, Bob.
One thing I did notice from the numbers tonight that were presented during our joint meeting, I couldn't help but look at the numbers he had on the screen and then look at what our numbers are. And they're slightly different, and I don't know what accounts for that. I'm sure you probably can tell me, but they weren't wildly out of line. That, you know, you still saw the trend. There were some that were high and low, and they were probably $1,000 within the numbers. But I was wondering what accounted for those differences in the numbers and why they weren't exactly what we see versus what he was presenting.
I asked that same question at one of our recent meetings, so I actually have an answer for you.
Excellent.
So we record, Anthem draws from our accounts, from our bank account every Thursday. So we account for our postings based on the draws from the account. So it's a weekly thing. So it's when Joe does his reports, he's looking at it from the month, and I'm looking at it as a draw within that month time. So he could be looking at 31 days and I could be looking at 4 draws. So that's why it's close, but not exact. So mine is cash and his is accrual.
Rule. Okay.
Right? Yeah.
No, I get it. That makes a lot of sense now. Yeah. And they weren't huge.
Correct. That's why they're very close, because we're probably only off a couple of days.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, I had that same question recently, because it's just he gives a lot of detail to the Board of Ed Operations Committee, and I don't necessarily see that on a monthly basis. So I don't know how my numbers are different from his until we start looking at it on a yearly basis. So that's why I asked that same question.
Great, thank you. So
in the end, it's all the same, but
okay,
as we go along, it's slightly different.
Right. So through halfway through the year, we're at 13.4 of the stop loss premium.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else on medical? Anyone has? All right. If nothing further for Mary Jane, then I will entertain a motion to approve the report of expenditures of the town government for December 2021 in the amount of $2,838,127.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, recusals.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 6. Set interest rate for Guilford Supplementary Tax Program. It must be January because we do this every year. There's a memo that captures all this, and I think just for the viewing public, of which I hope there's always some, I do want to just read the memo for background. This is from Mary Jane Malvasi, our finance director, on January 12th. This is both regarding the supplementary tax relief program and elderly tax relief program for fiscal year 2022-23. The Guilford Supplementary Tax Relief Plan requires that the Board of Finance set the interest rate annually for those deferring their taxes. It is my recommendation that the rate of 1.47% be used for the fiscal year 2022-23 budget. This rate represents the current 20-year spot yield for AAA rated general obligation municipal bonds as reported by Municipal Market Data, which is a subsidiary of Thomson Reuters. And then the next item here basically talks about the elderly tax relief program. So does anybody have any comments, questions? Mary Jane, do you want to fill in any blanks there? Or pretty self-explanatory? Any questions? If not, I'll just go ahead and entertain the motion to approve that the interest rate of the Guilford Supplementary Tax Relief Program for fiscal year 22-23 be set at 1.47% per the recommendation of the town's finance director.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Excellent. Moving on to item number 7, set cap for the aggregate benefit under section E2 of the Elderly Tax Relief Program ordinance. I will continue in the same memo. Pursuant to section 247-27A of the Elderly Tax Relief Program ordinance, the aggregate benefit should not be set at less than 0.5% of 1% of the fiscal year 21-22 total budget of $105,169,759 or $525,849. In order to avoid prorating the benefits of those approved for the program, the Board of Finance has set the cap at a level to cover the full amount of benefits approved as shown in the table below. So we do have a table here that shows from 2012 through 2020, the cap and the benefits that were related to the cap and the number of applicants as well. I'll just continue and say, although the full cost of the program for fiscal year 22-23 and the 2021 grand list cannot be calculated until after the application process is completed on May 15th of 2022, it is my recommendation that the cap remain at $1 million since the amount of annual benefits is still below the current cap. And it seems like we have been pretty well both funded, and we've covered it without much of an issue over the past several years. So I would agree with the recommendation. Anybody have any further thoughts or comments on that?
I just think the number of applicants has gone down so much over the last 8 years. Yeah.
Unfortunately, there may be some mortality tables in play at this point.
And there were, and this Matt, remind me also, you know, this was from 23-24, and a few years before, of course, we had, you know, recessionary issues where the number of applicants really ballooned. So this has been, like you said, Jeff, it's been steadily declining over the years. So that helps with tax relief, at least with the cap that we need to set. So if nothing further, I'll entertain a motion to approve that the aggregate benefit under Section E2 of the Guilford Elderly Tax Relief Program for fiscal year 22-23 be capped at $1 million per the recommendation of the town's finance director.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Excellent. Mary Jane, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Committee reports, number 8, building permits. If nothing on that, then we'll go to item number 9. We'll go to old business. I do have 2 items under old business. I'll do the first one really quickly because it's just a recap, or not a recap, just a summary of a few of us from the Board of Finance actually attended a Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, CCM, Newly Elected Officials Day. And I know a few of us were members of that, which I think was very helpful, whether new or like myself, I attended it. So it was good to get a refresher. And I thought it was very, very good in terms of the presentations, talked about fundamentals of municipal government and FOA, freedom of information, ethics, meetings, how to run them, budgeting 101, you know, pretty much. So it was very helpful. So just wanted to put out a shout out to CCM for doing that program for municipalities all across the state. There were boards of education, there were finance directors, boards of finance. It was really a great mix. And a lot of people were on it. I think it was something like 150, 160 people were on it. So it was great. The Board of Education, Board of Finance joint meeting, our second one was this evening. And I'll let anybody fill in after I try to provide a bit of a summary. We learned a lot in an hour and a half. And I will say that almost an hour of it, I believe, was regarding the single largest driver of the Board of Education budget this year, which is medical insurance. You'll be hearing a lot about that in the future as a public, as we go into, I was going to say, as we go into budget season, we're in it. But there was a really great presentation by Joe Spurgeon, who basically, his title again, Mary Jane, help me out again. He's our advisor, medical advisor.
Consultant, yeah.
Consultant, yeah. Really went over the history of medical claims. I won't go into any detail, but there was a lot of data that was presented over the last pretty much 6-7 years. One of the things I got out of it, and I'm sure the rest of the board did, is that from the fiscal year 16-17 to today, it's 15%, 15% less what's being proposed in the budget, I believe, than what it was in 16-17. So what we saw was quite a bit of reduction, savings, and migration to an HSA plan with the participants. And when that happened, it started to really we saw a lot of savings. Well, this year, it seems that some of that is caught up to us, and those reductions are going to be given back somewhat, just based on the trends in the medical insurance. There is something that we talked about that I won't go into too much detail, but lasering, and it's something that I guess medical practices, not practices, insurance consultants are seeing that. And again, not to go into detail, but large claims are basically itemized and then become the responsibility of the town. I'll leave it at that, but that alone accounts for a possible could account for a possible increase, but we hope we're going to be able to use some of our reserve to offset that. But just in general, we're talking about a pretty big increase on insurance. The superintendent's budget presented to us, and that will be talked about and I'll mention this later about the meetings that are coming up with the Board of Education. It's a 5.9% increase that the superintendent has recommended to the Board of Education. 2.4% of that is the insurance. So that leaves about 3.5 that is non-insurance, so to speak. It was mentioned that this is the highest percentage increase that the superintendent has requested since he started here 11 years ago. There's a lot of reasons for that. To go into too much detail would not do justice to the amount of work the board, I shouldn't say the Board of Ed, because their work starts really in earnest now. But the superintendent, all the department heads, and all the administrators have done. It was also mentioned that over the last 6 years, it doesn't. It should be noted that the increases for the Board of Education over the last 6 years have all been under 2%. And 3 of the last 3 years have all been under the cost of living. So there's been a lot of savings the Board of Education has realized. There's lower budgets that have been presented over the last 6 years, and this one seems to be an anomaly, but understand that the Board of Education still needs to put their thoughts on it and their pens and paper to those numbers and come up with a final budget that will be presented to us. I believe I also heard, and somebody could correct me if I didn't hear this right, Linda is on, so she could tell me. I believe that any new items that were presented by the superintendent, not those that either cost increases or needs that already exist, the new items are under a 1% increase in budget. So there's really not much new. It's insurance, it's cost of materials, supplies, utilities. There is some staffing increases, and those will be discussed by the Board of Education in more detail that I won't go into here, but just wanted to give a quick recap of where the superintendent stands, and then I will, under new business, just briefly talk about the process over the next month. Anybody else want to add anything to that I might have missed that was important from the board?
Mr.
Okay. Yep. Mr. Howard, go ahead.
Just a couple of things, Mike. Thank you for that summary. I had the pleasure of attending that meeting as well. One of the things that I've had some conversations with Dr. Freeman about is a significant contributor to those low budgets over the last 4 or 5 years has been the decrease in healthcare costs. And so we need to, I suggested to the superintendent, we need to frame this in an overall 5 or 6 year window because of the dramatic nature of the impact on health insurance costs today, which is, which we received the benefits of for the last 4 or 5 years. And I don't mean to quibble with you with your choice of words. We are not allocating healthcare reserve funds as part of this budget. We would be merely risking some of those funds to cover the people that we are lasering. For the folks that we are deciding to laser, we would cover them with a transfer after the fact, not a revenue bump at the front side of this. It's a distinction worth noting because
Thank you.
as you have said, you have concerns about allocating reserve funds to offset budgetary increases because of the difficulty in finding that money the following year. So I just wanted to make that clarification that we are putting at risk our reserve funds. We are not allocating them at the front side of this budget.
There's been discussion in the past about the use of those reserve funds.
Absolutely.
What we heard tonight was that with this particular issue of lasering on this, with the stop loss in these particular, I guess you could say the large claim cases, that would be a possible appropriate use of reserve funds, because it's medical within medical for something that could be looked at as a one-time expense, right? On the lasering of certain participants, not in general saying, well, let's just pull it out of there to mitigate taxes and offset the expense. That would not be a prudent use, because now what happens next year? And we don't know, as we know every single year. And after hearing Joe's presentation and hearing Mary Jane and Linda just now say, now you see just a snapshot of what it is we look at. It would be incredibly dangerous to do that. And I know we'll have a lot of discussion on this, but I do appreciate the clarification, just so it's there are solid uses or appropriate uses for the reserve, and there are not. And that is one of them, is this particular issue with the large claims.
Exactly. As I said, the term, we are assuming some additional risk, which we expect to be covered if it materializes.
We don't even know yet.
That's a big if. If it materializes, if it materializes, we would expect to cover it from the fund balance, because quite honestly, there are not a lot of these cases that survive more than 1 or 2 fiscal years.
Right.
I think it's important to note that these are people's lives. I mean,
Exactly.
we're talking about our workforce.
Yep.
Yeah, it becomes all too real when it's not just a number anymore. And
Well, it's all too, I mean, it's easy to get lost in numbers.
Yeah,
you have to remember that there's people on the other side of the numbers. And in our case, the town's case, it's our workforce.
Right.
Exactly.
Anything else under old business? Okay. So under new business, I really just wanted to kind of set the stage, or provide some information to the public regarding the process, because as we come out of January and we go into February and March, as we all know, these are very busy months for us. So when we sign off tonight, we tomorrow morning and Thursday morning, the Board of Finance is invited to the Board of Selectmen budget workshops with all of the departments, which we do on an annual basis. And those are, I know, by Zoom tomorrow, like I said, tomorrow morning, pretty much all morning, and then on Thursday morning. So we will be a part of those, or at least in tune to those discussions, and be able to ask any questions and have give and take, which is always incredibly helpful. The Board of Education public budget hearings, what I was just talking about on the from the joint meeting earlier this evening. The public budget hearings will be on Monday, January 24th, and Tuesday, January 25th. Both of those will start at 7:30. Both of them are by Zoom. And we were informed, the board, that these will be interactive, where questions can be asked. So everyone, if the public has the opportunity to tune in and to ask questions during those hearings. At that point, the Board of Education will go ahead and they will deliberate and decide on final budgets, the final budget for them. After the Board of Selectmen workshops, they will do the same after the workshops tomorrow and Wednesday. And our next regular meeting will be Thursday, February 17th. And this will be our regular meeting and also include presentations by both the town and the Board of Education on the budgets they will be presenting for the fiscal year 22-23 budget season. After that, we will go into our more public hearing in March. I'm sorry, I don't have the date in front of me. I want to say it's March 8th. Somebody? I think it's March 8th. I know.
I'd have to pull up my schedule.
Whatever that Tuesday is around March 8th. I apologize. Someone will correct me, but it's Tuesday and Thursday.
Mr. Ailes?
Thank you.
Mr. Ailes, you're correct. It is Tuesday, March 8th.
Thank God. Thank God. So Tuesday, March 8th and Thursday, March 10th. First will be the public hearing on Tuesday, and then on Thursday there will be the first workshop. We need a second one to determine what budget to send to the voters. Then we will use Monday. That would be March 14th. Right. So the one thing I don't know yet is, and I guess this is part of new business, is how we're actually going to do this in terms of in-person, whether by Zoom. We have gotten really good at this Zoom thing over the last couple budget cycles. However, I would love to see it back in person. I don't know if that's going to actually happen, and that's something we'll have to decide. Those dates will not change. How we do this, we do want to make sure that, and I think, yeah, I've been kind of looking to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Education has already gone virtual, and for the foreseeable future. How the Board of Finance will initiate or hold their meeting really is dependent on public input. We want to make sure the public can be able to be a part of this process, and especially for the 17th of February and our March meetings, whether that's better to do in person or to do virtually, remains to be seen. But we want to be able to have a hybrid if needed, and we're going to be in person. We also need to make sure, I think, that we have virtual capability, and I know the community center doesn't quite have that, but the Selectmen's meeting room does. So I think that'll be to be determined, but I want to make sure the dates are out there. So.
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest holding off on that decision. I would suggest holding off on that decision to see where we go with the peak on the Omicron. Quite honestly, I think we ought to be moving to pretty much all virtual meetings. There is some rumors that the health folks are saying this is cresting right now, and we'll be on the backside of it within 2 weeks. So I'd hold off at this point.
Oh, yeah, and I would definitely not ask anybody's opinion tonight or let anyone know how we're going to do it. I think it's just stay tuned to see how things ride out.
I'll go back
but the dates are set.
I'll go back to a premise I had early on in this thing. Unless every member of my particular board was comfortable meeting in a hybrid or a personal fashion, I wasn't going to do it. So I don't know whether you want to adopt a similar philosophy, but if there are members who do not feel comfortable being in person, clearly I would not make in-person mandatory, or disadvantage them by them being the only ones who don't participate.
No, absolutely. We have adopted that. If any one person comes forward and says they don't feel comfortable, then we're virtual. So. Anything else under new business? Linda, go ahead.
I just want to mention for the public that the full Board of Education budget is available on our website. It's the same detail that is presented to you in your book or in board pack, so that information is out there for the public to review. in case they want
Thank
to
you for
read.
adding that. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Okay. Item 11, public forum. I think we're the public. Well, we're all there is. So we're all that's left. Okay. Well, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye. Thank you,
Aye.
everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night, everybody.